Start the recording.
It's recording.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone joining us from around the world. We are truly grateful to see such a strong turnout for this first session of Learning for Humanity's Mental Health and Psychosocial Support webinar series. My name is Govinda Bilges, and I'm representing Learning for Humanity, which is a program of Medicines for Humanity. Throughout this webinar series, we will aim to strengthen the practical and community-based mental health and psychosocial support skills for frontline health service providers working in diverse and often resource-limited settings. Today, the session is titled Caring for the Caregivers, Understanding Burnout and Self-Care. We choose to begin the series here intentionally because before we talk about supporting others, we must acknowledge something essential. Those who care for others are also vulnerable. Service providers, whether health workers, educators, faith leaders, social workers, or community volunteers, are often deeply committed and passionate individuals. But ongoing exposure to stress, trauma, and unmet needs can take a real toll. Therefore, burnout and emotional exhaustion are not signs of weakness, but they are signals that support and sustainable practices are needed. This session will help us better understand what burnout is, what caregivers, why caregivers are especially vulnerable, and warning signs to recognize these early. It is my pleasure to introduce our facilitator, Efrata Gezahegan. I'm so sorry. Please introduce yourself again and
No worries.
say that correctly. She's a
Yeah.
mental health professional with experience in trauma-informed care and psychosocial program coordination. Efrata brings to us technical expertise and deep commitment to strengthening culturally responsive mental health systems. Before we begin, just a few quick logistics. Please use the chat to share where you're from, as you're already doing. Thank you so much.
hmm
And hello from Germany. I am in Germany. Um, because of the size of today's group, we will use the chat for reflections and questions, and we will reserve time at the end for questions and answers. Anything we're not able to answer, we will send you in an email. You'll get a summary of this meeting and the recording as well. Interpretation is being provided, which reminds me also to speak a little slower. So please select your language by going to the icon that we've shown you in the picture. And thank you again for being here and for the work that you do every day in your communities. Supporting others begins with awareness, and today we begin with ourselves. Efrata, please take it away. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And also you can call me Effie. That makes it easier. Yeah, for everyone as well too. If anyone wants to address a question, you can call me Effie. So good morning. Again, I am Effie. A mental health professional and have a good experience in global mental health and psychosocial support, like Camilla have said. Today's session, we're going to start off with caring for caregivers, and we'll spend about an hour together. I'm pausing for translation. Sorry.
It's live interpretation, so the
Oh,
translator is translating in her own channel. So you don't need to
okay.
pause.
Oh,
Just you can continue, just speak slowly.
okay.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
um, so just a bit in the chat, like I've seen everyone sharing where everyone's from. It's I'm glad to see the turnout, and I'm gonna go ahead and start today's session. That's okay. Yeah. Um, Before starting to talk about caring for the caregivers, let's briefly define um, what MHPSS is. And this is our session overview for the coming 4 weeks. Going to start off with ourselves. We'll go into skills, go into community, and look into a system. Like I've said, it's going to last for an hour, and we'll be going through the following focuses, following learning objectives as well. Um, this is just an introduction. I do want to ask the following icebreaker answer. I'd like to invite everyone to answer whichever you feel comfortable with the following icebreaker questions. Um, First question is which one you would prefer to have in the morning? Is it either coffee or tea? Second question is what would what would your superpower be, and why would you choose that? Third is what's your favorite tradition or holiday to celebrate? Answer whichever one you want in the chat. Coffee, same. Yes. I am so sorry. Can you hear me now? Yeah? Okay, perfect. Coffee, yes. Christmas, my birthday, I love. hmm Coffee, prayer. I love the turnout and I love the answers. Carnival, coffee, Christmas. You see, the most common answers are coffee and Christmas. Silence and prayer. I also see tea. I love that. Um, yes. I'll leave everyone to keep on answering the questions in the chat below. And I also would like to um, educational psychologist coffee. Yes. Um, I also prefer coffee in the morning. This is just a bit of introduction, but we have gone through introducing myself twice now, so I'm gonna continue with our session today. Um, so before we talk about ourselves and how to care for ourselves, um, let's briefly define mental health psychosocial support. Um, MHPSS is a term and at the same time a practice that focuses on addressing the emotional, social, practical well being of individuals in our community. It can be provided by a non mental health expert and specialist. Um, it is a term used um, by mainly health professionals in the humanitarian emergencies. Um, and the scope is a basic community based and non clinical focused work. Um, the most common examples and activities um, in MHPSS are when you think of MHPSS, it is composed of activities, and it's not just a one-to-one psychosocial support, that it has activities which include psychological first aid, which is an immediate response to a distress. It also includes psychoeducation like this, or any other psychoeducation one-to-one. Another one you can think of is we can briefly mention is a child friendly space or a safe space for anyone who is distressed during emergency settings or anything that is distressful in the community. As first responders and caregivers, these are common activities that can be held, that can be done by MHPSS workers. If anyone has questions, please leave them on the main chat and I'll be happy to um, answer them. Image basis is very important because emotional and social needs must be met alongside of physical needs, which I understand that most of the participants here are, and um, although it is healthcare and it is a physical need that is being addressed, MHPSS can easily be intertwined into the work that you are doing, which we will be talking more in depth the following week as well too. Um, So when we're talking about caring for the caregivers, we're considering ourselves, we're considering the healthcare workers, we're considering frontline workers like ourselves, like everyone in this meeting today. Um, so everyone working in health, you support others every day. Caregivers are, like we've said, first responders to distress, any physical distress, any even mental health distress, although patients and clients don't necessarily come to the health facility for only physical health. Um, Caring for the caregivers is a very essential thing. That is why we're starting here today, according to participants' survey and understanding and desire for the sessions as well too. Um, Caregivers are going through exposure to everyone is going. Caregivers are undergoing exposure to suffering, um, if not every day, but often, and that really impacts caregivers' mental health. The reality of caregivers includes high responsibility, emotional exposure, limited resource, expectation to always be strong and to always show up and work. And and usually that work turns out to be invisible sometimes too. Um, that is why we want to emphasize on caring for ourselves. How do we care for ourselves so that we can support the clients, we can support the community we are part of in any way we can. Yeah, that is why we today will be looking into the difference between burnout and emotional exhaustion. Um, let's look at the two important concepts, the burnout and emotional exhaustion. Um, as you can see on the slides, burnout is a condition linked to a work stress. It is a state of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion as well too, from dedicating time and energy to managing someone else's health, someone else's safety, someone else's care or need. Um, Caregivers with burnout may feel tired, stressed, withdrawn, anxious, and depressed as well too. Everything that the clients, everything that the community feels caregivers feel the same way as well too. But what makes caregivers quite different is that um, they are experiencing everyone's distress alongside. Um, and looking into emotional exhaustion, they tend to somehow share the same tendencies, but they are quite different. Um, Emotional exhaustion is similar. It is a feeling of being emotionally worn down. It's more of an emotional where burnout comes from a work stress and it shows up in our emotion and mental exhaustion. Emotional exhaustion is more an emotional reaction to this. Um, like you have given everything and there is imagine oh, you are giving everything to the community, to the clients you're serving, and it's like having nothing inside of you. It's like having the energy drawn out, the energy being taken out um, throughout the day. So I would like to ask a quick reflection question to share in the chat. Um, both are real, both are common, and both deserve attention. And please type either one up to four, whichever um, you feel most connected to. Um, when you think of burnout and emotional exhaustion, if you mostly feel emotionally exhausted, mostly closer to burnout, uh, or feel both, I'm not sure. Oh, I see in the chat, Lance saying not sure. The one emotional exhaustion. I see not sure as well too. Sometimes both. Yes, both of them do come along together sometimes too. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing. Closer to burnout. And we will look into both of them in detail, mostly burnout, the following few slides. Closer to burnout. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. Um, Looking in depth into burnout, burnout has somehow four stages when we look into it from a caregiver's perspective. Um, Burnout does not happen all at once. It builds up as a stage, as like climbing a ladder. So let's walk through the four stages. First one is a warning stage, which is initially caregiver strain. Um, Caregiving starts with energy and optimism, but as responsibilities grow over time, that optimism usually fades away. Um, you start to feel strain, fatigue, and frustration, especially about your work and certain patients you see, and even certain tasks you have. Um, that is mostly look what we call a warning stage, which is a strain you have. It is like considered as if a strain on your body. Um, Second one is a control stage. Um, this grows more into a physical and emotional demand that are growing, and you may feel overwhelmed and usually hopeless or guilty. You may try to control things and that are outside of your control, and you feel pain and anguish when things don't go as planned. This is usually when anxiety may develop and caregivers feel resentful and worried towards not doing enough. And this is where after feeling a strain, we sense the strain, so we try to control the things that we are working on. We try to control, oh, I can adjust this, or I can manage this, and we don't notice that showing up because of anxiety sometimes. And we see this burnout developing throughout time. Again, if anyone has questions, please leave them in the chat and we'll make sure to answer them later on. Um, the third one is the survival stage. This is an escalation where the challenge, the burnout, usually develops higher and higher. This is when caregivers feel unbearable. You may emotionally detach from people in your care, the facility, the people you work with, and even the patients. Um, and we may begin to neglect our own health as well too. And we feel somehow sad and depressed. And we see physical exhaustion as well too, as well that we see that develop as well too. And isolation seems to come up at this stage. We tend to isolate ourselves. We tend to distance ourselves from the people we work with, our family, and um, people in the community. Um, and we also see the enthusiasm and um, the quality of care we have declining and resulting poor patient care we have. Um, yeah, this is the survival stage. After the development stage, we see after trying to control things, we see things falling under the cracks, and we may feel distant and isolate ourselves because some things cannot be controlled. We see the strain coming in, we see the physical and the emotional exhaustion in ourselves. So we see the quality of care, we see the emotional detachment and the withdrawal coming up. Um, and that grows later on to stage 4, where we call the actual burnout stage. It's a complete burnout stage. This is the most severe one, but it's not just like
Okay.
like we have seen um, burnout develop on these stages. A complete burnout doesn't just come in immediately, and we don't see it clearly as well too. This is the most severe stage, like I've said. You may no longer be able to provide effective care. Emotional numbness sets in. We tend to emotionally feel numb. Um, we also feel unable to empathize. Sometimes it's hard when patients come in and engaging with community. We sense the empathy we have, the care we have, not coming up as it used to. It's not necessarily because we have lost it. It's not necessarily because we will not um, have it for the foreseeable future. Rather, right now we have seen the burnout coming in as a stage in that it's showing up at this stage of your career. um, the care and the empathy you had is no longer there. And it's not that does not necessarily mean you won't be able to do your work. Rather, the care you have, the effectiveness you have, doesn't necessarily show up as you want it to. Um, Sadly, many caregivers in this position, I feel like they can adequately take care of themselves. But as burnout grew throughout the stages, like we have seen, it, we can definitely care for ourselves, even though we have reached a complete burnout stage too. Recognizing which stage you are in is the first step toward getting a support. Um, I noticed and I have seen a couple of people answer burnout as well too. If anyone wants to share and that have answered burnout, which stage you have sensed yourself being at right now in the chat, it's all right if you don't want to, but just to notice that it's not just an actual burnout, but it escalates throughout time. Okay. Um, Moving on, we are going to look into the biopsychosocial model. This is when we're talking about burnout, it usually shows up. I constantly say stressed and anxious, and burnout usually shows up as a stress. And this stress that we see on ourselves that grows into a burnout had doesn't just necessarily um, is not just necessarily a head space or a cognitive or an emotional reaction to things. Rather, it is um, it's a mix of physical, social, and psychological um, reactions. It's all coming all together. Looking at the biopsychosocial model or the biopsychosocial uh, model of stress, um, it shows up in three areas of our lives. The physical signs, as you can see on the slides, is it has it includes the signs include a heart rate, an increased heart rate, an elevated blood pressure, and I am pretty sure people who are in the in the health field, in the physical health field, already know the physical reactions, the physical signs of this that are mentioned here. Um, we can also see headaches, muscle tensions, and change in appetite. And we also, it doesn't necessarily, we don't notice it that much, but it also shows up in digestive system and digestive problems. It also shows up in fatigue and sleep disturbance as well, to having poor sleep, um, poor sleep um, rotation we have. Those are the physical signs and reactions we notice when we're going through stress, a stressful or burnout um, season of our lives, of our work as well. The psychological signs are both cognitive and emotional, which includes a difficulty concentrating, decision fatigue, which usually means we constantly have to decide for patient care, for care, for a lot of things in the facility, and um, that usually strains us out. Deciding for a whole day for other people's care, for the works that we do, um, it causes us a lot of fatigue, and that's what we call decision fatigue. It also shows up as a worry, irritation, and feeling overwhelmed by everything that you do. And And another thing that it shows up as is a loss of meaning and purpose too. We see pain, we see people in distress every day, every hour, and you notice the meaning that you have of your life, the purpose, and the things that drive you to to live, to work. Usually, we see that um, fading away sometimes or questioning some things, and that is a stress reaction. It's not necessarily does not necessarily mean that you have lost the meaning. Rather, it usually goes um, it's like a cloud. You um, tends to cloud you sometimes because stress comes in your life, and we don't usually tend to see the sun because it's cloudy outside, and that's exactly it when you look at this cognitive and the emotional, the psychological um, reaction and signs to distress. Um, the other two are reduced empathy, sadness, and feeling hopeless as well too. When you look at the social reactions and the social signs are it's when you look at social, you look at relational, the relationship you have with your family, with the community, with your patients, and with your coworkers as well too. Um, it usually shows up as withdrawing from colleagues and families, um, reduced patience, um, and usually comes up as frustration and seeing conflicts and like having conflicts between colleagues and family members or community members as well too. Um, difficulty with boundaries as well too. We tend to either overshare or not share as much as we should. And decreased job satisfaction. The satisfaction in the joy that we used to get out of the job that we do usually tends to fade away. Again, think of it as a cloud. Um, stress is usually like a cloud. It comes up because of being overwhelmed, because of overwork, and it tends to cloud us in our psychological well-being, in our physical, and in our social as well too. Yes. Okay. Looking into the cultural expectation around
Can
caregiving.
we go back to
Yeah,
the previous slide? I just want to add a little bit.
yeah.
I want everyone to just take a look at this and to, if you're not familiar with this model, to
Mm,
really note it for yourself because we're not we're beings that are made up of our body and our social life, the where we work and our mind, right? So we have our physical being, the psychological things that are happening within ourselves, our cognitive and are separated into cognition and emotion, and then we have
mm,
the others who we are with.
mhm,
So when we are experiencing stress, we can be experiencing it from different levels within different levels in our body. So the
mm,
most important thing is for you to think about this model and when you're feeling something, ask yourself, am I feeling this stress right now physically?
mhm,
Am I feeling it within my mind? Is there a cognitive dissonance, like a disagreement within myself? And how is
mhm,
that affecting my emotion? Can I step back from my emotion and look at this issue, look at this stress, and calmly find a solution to it? Or how can I work around this issue? It's a very interesting model that helps us view our stress methodically. And yeah, so just
yes.
a reminder to think strategically not only about what is happening on the outside or within the facility or in a project, but what is happening. We can also think strategically about what is happening with
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. How am I feeling, and how is this manifesting?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Thank you. Just wanted to jump in there. Thank you so
No,
much,
no,
Abra.
you're right. Thank you so much. Yeah, the key thing is to step out and to look at ourselves from a third person perspective and see which one is coming up. Yes. Thank you so much. Um, Looking into the cultural expectations around um, caregiving, the way we respond to stress is shaped by culture. Although we don't necessarily, we might not necessarily notice our culture and our tradition. We hold on to the culture we grew up from, um, we come from. It definitely shapes and um, shapes at the same time distorts our expectation towards our caregiving and our work as well too. Um, we may have been taught to always be strong, to prioritize others above ourselves. That rest seems to be laziness. That asking for help is weakness sometimes. This message can be helpful. They can give us dedication and commitment, but they can also silence us when we need support. Um, Taking care of ourselves, there are cultures where um, caring for ourselves is really emphasized and really welcomed. There are also other cultures where while caring for others, we need to just be strong and we need to show care every time and not experience this distresses, not welcome all these things that we have looked into a slide before, the psychological, the social, the physical things showing up. There are cultures, there are expectations that um, usually discourage for this distress reactions to show up and express them. And that usually holds us back from recognizing the psychological, the social, the physical signs of distress. Um, um, Yeah, with this, I'd like to invite everyone to share in the chat one message about stress or burnout exists in your work or community or the culture you grew up in, the culture you are a part of right now. What are the caregivers expected to do when they are exhausted, even though they're exhausted? Which beliefs makes it harder to ask for support?
Could you please repeat the activity?
Yeah. Um, It is for everyone to share in the chat whichever question you want to address, to look at the cultural expectation we are a part of, we grew up in, and notice in our work and see um, what message about stress or burnout exists in our work or community, and what caregivers and frontline workers are expected to do when we are exhausted. Um, what are the beliefs that are out there that makes it harder for getting support or taking a rest, um, and caring for ourselves. Yeah.
I would like to share. For example, I am of Latin descent, Latin culture, and
Hmm.
my parents always said that anxiety is not real and
Hmm.
depression is not real.
Yeah.
I can also share now that I live in Germany, I can also share something about what they do here. And they have programs when people go. It's a lot easier because the healthcare system is a little different. But if you do have a burnout or if a doctor has diagnosed you with a burnout, you have an option
Mm,
to go to a facility and just to be treated for burnout for a couple of weeks. And it's seen as a very normal thing and a very relaxed thing that a lot of people take part in. You can even do, it's called a KUA. And you can
mm,
go, if you have children, you can also take your children. So a mother could go with her two young children, and then the children would be taken care of. And the mom would participate in group therapy and relaxation and meditation exercise sessions.
mm.
So two different worlds.
Yeah, yeah.
We have a few comments in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One says, if you cry, you are weak.
Mm, yeah, yeah. That is one of the cultural expectations I also share, and I think most of the communities the world share as well too. Yes, crying is in it sounds like something a weak person would do, even though you are going through a higher expectation.
Another comment says
Mhm.
that as caregivers, you never get tired. So why should you rest?
Mm, mm, yeah, taking a rest seems to be the expectation. Not taking a rest seems to be the expectation. Like you're caring for others. It's not like lifting weights or comparing it to other things. Um, that care, giving, being a caregiver and a frontline worker is not something that gets you tired, but it does. Like we have seen, strains away our physical, social, and it shows up in different ways. Like everyone in any field.
Another comment says, how can health professionals overcome a period of security crisis?
Mm,
And this happens a lot. We have a lot of programs in Haiti currently. All of our health workers are experiencing times of insecurity,
mm,
extreme poverty within their community, and also insecurity in terms of war, kidnapping, gangs, things like this. So, how can a health worker um, be able to overcome that period?
mm, yeah. It is it is hard because when you look at it, healthcare workers and frontline workers are usually the first responders. Everyone goes to a healthcare worker professional when going through a security crisis and even health crisis, humanitarian crisis, any type of distress, disaster. Everyone tends to go to safety, a healthcare facility, and um, we tend to overlook that healthcare professionals are also part of that community. Yeah.
So here we have that's a big point there,
Mm,
Efrata. A lot of people are the community and the
mm,
public looks towards the facility as a source of shelter, as a source
mm-hmm.
of protection
Safe space. Yeah.
wherein it is difficult to balance the fact that within this source of protection are also humans that are dealing with their own families and who have
Mm-hmm.
chosen this profession for
Mm,
many reasons because it is very
yeah.
noble work, it is rewarding.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people who go into this line of work like working with people and like contributing. But this is very important that people are taking care of themselves. So there are other techniques such as journaling, prayer,
Mm-hmm.
meditation, things that make you feel calm and that continue to use that neuroplasticity, which is
Mm-hmm.
allowing your brain to continue to learn and be
Mm-hmm.
able to tap into calm
Mm-hmm.
neural pathways and relax neural pathways as much as possible, depending on the type of person that you are, what it is that you like to do, and attempting to deal with the
Yes.
insecurity situations in certain ways. We are getting a lot of comments, so and we still
Yes.
have slides, so I'll just do another comment that says women are multitaskers and just keep
Mm,
working. Um,
mm,
and also women need to learn what it is that is good for them. What is the self-care the specifications that are good for them and what can they do
mm.
for themselves? So
Yeah.
a lot of comments, I'll go through them, and if there are any questions, I will jot them down for the end. You can
Okay.
go.
Yeah. Okay. Um, yeah, these are everyone has mentioned good cultural expectations. And one thing I want to note is that when we look into culture, we see the good it has, we see the norms and the traditions we have, but at the same time there are a lot of expectations, wrong expectations, and wrong traditions as well too within a culture. It does not necessarily mean one has to be set apart from the culture to notice these expectations within the culture without leaving the culture. We can notice these expectations and work on it as well too. These are very powerful because um, this cultural expectations, even though we notice them, even though we are listing them today, noticing them and noticing them is a very big step too, by the way, in the first place. Um, because within a culture, it's usually somehow so hard to see, oh, I am part of the culture. I can't say bad things about cultural expectations, and we tend to withhold ourselves from expressing these expectations um, culture has on us, on caregivers and frontline workers as well too, and noticing that and sounding it out um, is a good big step into working on these expectations and the burnouts and everything that follows it as well too. Okay. There are um, a bunch of layers when it comes to caregiver pressure. When I say caregiver pressure, think, uh, I put on that image because I want you to notice the pressure it has on each other, um, which is caregivers have um, are not just giving care. They're not just treating distress. They're not just um, caring for patients. Um, we're working on a facility. We're working under a community and um, um, a healthcare system with that has limited resource and support. Um, Constantly exposed to suffering and suffering of others, distress of others. Every caregiver and first um, first responder also is doing is going through multiple responsibilities because of multiple roles they have, which is you have the work responsibility, you also have the family responsibility, you also have the community responsibility, and switching between the responsibilities and the roles you have in your workspace in the community tends to pressure and like have pressure on a caregiver. The other two are this cultural expectation we have mentioned. There's also this cultural expectation we have to endure. We're not just hearing and like just leaving it behind. We're enduring these expectations. The fact that we are not supposed to react. We're not supposed to um, get tired, or women are supposed to care continuously. These expectations we have to um, endure them and work through them as well too. And there's also the minimum time recovery where we have less amount of time than any other people, especially in the caregiver in the health care profession. There's limited amount of recovery time for you, and this things I have mentioned, they are like layers on top of each other. They're not spread out, but they tend to pressure us this is what is causing us the strain, this is what is causing us the stress, this we are enduring and we're working through these layers. And recovery from caregiver burnout, it's not necessarily an overnight process. And like we have seen it as a process and as a stage, we're gonna go through a recovery process as well too, that goes from pressure, this pressure, to restoration, to coping mechanism as well too. Um, some caregivers may recover in few weeks. Others may take much longer time or even less time as well too, especially when the physical and emotional toll has been significant. Recovery tends to take time, and that is absolutely normal. Looking into coping mechanism, looking into um, going from this pressure to restoring ourselves and coping with with all this stress, to come back to the work that we love, to come back to the caregiving role that we love, and give whatever we have in us and have everything restored in us. We tend I want to take us into this stage where we are going from pressure to restoration process. Um, when we look into pressure, I'm so sorry, pressure. Ah, I tend to say it pressure, but pressure. Um, so it's increased.
I think something happened to your microphone,
I
Efrata.
think
Can you
so.
please check
Yeah,
on it?
yeah. Can you hear me now? Oh, okay. Oh, you
It's
muted, but
it's no, it's very low, so either speak louder
oh,
or get the microphone closer. I don't, it like sounded louder and then it came back up. We
okay,
actually have 5 minutes
okay.
um left, so we
Oh,
can it went by very quickly.
I know.
So if you finish this slide,
Hmm.
y- I can put our email in the chat and we'll wrap up, but we will provide instruction.
Okay,
Um, and pick up the rest next week.
okay.
Um, so go ahead.
Yeah. I'm gonna just put off my headphones. Can you hear me now? Okay. Um, looking into the pressure to restoration, pressure, some things increase depletion. When you look into pressure, there are expectations like, or like reactions like, saying something like, I must be strong. And there is this perfectionist side coming up, and this perfection expectation from colleagues and community members as well to perfectly uphold everything that we do in the work that we do. There's also ignoring our needs. It may show up as like not eating, not drinking water, not drinking enough water. There's also it also comes up as comparing ourselves to cope, saying, "Oh, I am good. I'm doing very well because I look at people that are extremely stressed. Compared to them, I am okay," and neglecting our needs and neglecting the pressure that we are in. by comparing ourselves to other people's distress. There's also productivity going down and self-criticism going up as well too. And that pressure goes up when we're trying to notice this, and goes up to stabilizing ourselves, and we tend to distract ourselves by like social media. We tend to take short rest without any emotional processing, any processing that we have to do to go through, that we have experienced, and the distress that we have to deal with. Um, it also shows up as talking only about the tasks, and not talking about the stress and the feelings that we are feeling, the physical and the social reactions to stress that we are going through. We tend to rely on our routine to cope, and instead of actually coping, which is the next phase, where we tend to vent without actually seeking support, and without actually seeking change. We also tend to avoid feelings that brings up this stress, this reactions that we have to burn out as well too. Um, we also have delayed stress, and we tend to stay busy as so not to slow down, to not um, to not go into what we call complete burnout. We tend to just stick to our routine and avoid our feelings. And this is a good coping mechanism, honestly. Slowing down tends to help us out, but it's a short-term relief. Delaying rest, even though we're taking rest, but like we're delaying it, tends to be a good a coping mechanism, but it's not necessarily doesn't necessarily restore us, which is the restoration, which we can look into restoration phase, where works that we can do to help us really cope and come back to the work that we love, which is meaningful connection, which is connecting with others and connecting with people to reflect, and connecting with spiritual with our spiritual needs and faith practices, and working on our boundaries, and basically being gentle to ourselves is really rebuilds our energy back up again.
That is so much information. Thank you so, so much. We are going to talk more about restoring
Mm.
ourselves. Can you go two slides forward?
Yeah.
Um, no, forward.
Oh,
Like
forward. Sorry.
haven't. We're going to talk about a personalized self-care plan during next week's webinar. We didn't have enough time today, but we will talk about that next week. A lot of your comments are, so what are health workers supposed to do? I want this job. I do it well, and now how do I move through what I am feeling? And a lot of this is called a moral injury, right? Someone commented it in the chat, and and I really appreciate that, because giving a name to something is very important when we know what something is called. It also means that it's not just us experiencing something. It's a term. It's recognized. And so what do we do when we feel a certain way as health workers, as frontline health workers? Experiencing constant stress and trauma on so many different levels, on top of our own personal lives. And how do we give and balance and create those boundaries that we need within our work, within our mind, within ourselves? We're going to talk about that personal self-care plan. If you would please stop sharing the
Yeah.
screen for now. I appreciate everyone showing up today. We are going to, like I said, share this recording. You can go ahead and share it with others. That is absolutely fine, because this information is open to anyone who may benefit from it, to anyone who may benefit from knowing these names and knowing these structures. We thank you very, very much. We thank Efrata for such a thoughtful and practical session. We'll have more practical, useful tools next week. We're reminded that caring for others requires caring for ourselves first. Burnout is not a personal failure. Is it a signal that we need support, boundaries, and sustainable self-care?
Mhm.
Protecting our own mental health is not optional. It is service work and it is part of an ethical and effective practice, which we will dive more into next week, like we said. We hope that you'll join us. Next week is the basics of mental health and psychosocial support. Thank you so much for all of the work that you do. Thank you for our translator, our interpreter, live interpreter, who is doing a great job and allows us to invite all of our French speakers. Thank you. And of course, if you want to know more about Learning for Humanity, Esther, if you can put our website into the chat, go to the Medicines for Humanity website and learn more about the programs we have. These are programs specifically for frontline health workers, the people who are already doing the work all around the world. And if you would please, if you have the capacity, please do turn on your camera and we'll take a quick picture. If you do not want to turn on your camera, that is absolutely fine. If you turn on your camera, you are agreeing to having a picture sent to everyone along with the recording. So I'll close this so I can get even more people into the camera. We were visited by approximately 160 people today from all around the world. One, two, and three. And so thank you for that. Thank you for the second picture is coming up. Thank you for making time for yourself, for your professional development, and for sharing these ideas with others. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you next week. Please share. Thank you.
Thank you.